Why is it so quiet?
GM, everyone. We'll give it a few more minutes just to make sure that people have a chance to join, and then we'll kick it off.
GM, everyone.
Hey, man.
Hey guys.
Okay, since we've got all the guests here, let's start. So welcome to our second Credible Stack deep dive. Today we're going to have a look at the Credible wallets. Great to have you all here. I think it would be awesome if we could start with a quick introduction round. Everybody just like a quick who they are and what they're working on. Yeah, let's start maybe with Stefan.
Actually, I was going to say you probably should start, and then I can go next.
Okay, hi, I'm Anna. I'm helping with ecosystem on One Balance. Happy to be here and excited for the space.
Hey, folks. I'm Stefan, founder at One Balance. Yeah, super stoked to have Credible Wallets today. I guess this is the second version of our Credible Stack deep dives. And we have obviously an amazing crew of people that are pushing UX in so many different ways. So I really want this conversation to be open-ended and free-flowing. I'm sure everyone here has some deep technical opinions on stuff, and so I'd love to go deep into that, as well as talking about different approaches to solving, I guess, the common problems that everyone here is trying to solve of providing better UX. So stoked to be here, stoked to have this conversation, and let's make it really great.
Is it a first jumps in, first speak type thing?
I think that's kind of the rule with Twitter Space.
Yeah.
You can.
All right.
Everyone can go at the same time.
I'll go next then. Hey guys, I'm Philippe. I'm the head of product at Horizon. Yeah, I've been doing some smart contract wallet stuff for about 5 years now, and obviously that's very integral to the cross chain, or at least the UX around cross chain transaction is very important for the account abstraction roadmap. So yeah, that's who I am.
Hey everyone, I'm Ivo. I'm the co-founder of Empire Wallet. And we're building a hybrid account abstraction extension wallet. And I'm super excited to be on this space, especially since chain abstraction is pretty much, I think, at this point, the hardest problem in the wallet space. So super excited.
Ivo, you're cutting in and out. I don't know if you're struggling with your microphone, but yeah, maybe Ahmed, you can jump in.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Ahmed. Great to be here. Thanks a lot for setting this up, guys. Yeah, I'm one of the founders at Bioconomy, and we've been around for the past 5 years, solely focused on empowering developers to achieve seamless Web3 experiences. And as a company, we essentially offer many things around account abstraction, essentially the full stack, all the way from paymasters, bundlers, and smart accounts. And we also had a recent product launch around delegations around AI, which I'm also happy to talk about today. So yeah, really excited for this conversation.
Hi everyone. So my name is Derek. I'm the CEO of ZeroDev. So what we do is that we basically we help applications improve their onboarding and transaction experience by embedding smart/account abstraction embedded wallets into their application. Yeah, so we launched actually like on the same day that ERC-427 launched. Like so far we have been powering just like a very a very large fraction of the traffic in account abstraction, so really excited to be here to jam on chain abstraction, account abstraction, and like and other exciting ideas with with the other guests here.
Okay, everyone, can you hear me better now?
It seems better, yes.
So far, so good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm Ivo. I'm the co-founder of Empire Wallet. We're building a hybrid account abstraction extension wallet, and I'm super excited to be on this space because chain abstraction is, in my personal opinion, the hardest problem to solve in wallet UX at the moment. So yeah, super excited.
So I'm super curious. I don't have any experience building wallets and actually dealing with users. I remember when I was trying to build a smart contract wallet back in 2019, there were just like no users on Ethereum, and so it was a little bit early to do this. Obviously, the space of smart contract wallets has evolved quite a bit, and you guys have all played, I think, a really important, crucial role in getting it there. I wonder if maybe someone, maybe Phil, since you've been around for quite a long time, could like paint a picture of how accounts have sort of evolved over the years on Ethereum and how the meta has sort of changed.
Well, that's a tough one, but I'll try. So I'll go back to where I came in, which was 2016, 2017. MetaMask was king. There's a couple of others, native browser. Was it Mist? Forget the name. Yeah, browser. Yeah, wallets were all about EOAs. And back then it was fine. That everything was cheap. There was pretty much only Ethereum as an asset, not really many dApps. So back then the wallet space was efficient in many ways. And around early 2018, there was, or even before that, there was some multi-sig. The multi-sig that started popping, there was this, and the other one that slips my name that got hacked, Parity, got hacked twice. And the multi-sig was, I think, the beginning of a paradigm shift of the accounts, or whether it's a corporate account or a user account, could be controlled by multiple signers via a contract. And back then it was very much mostly for corporation. Not many people would use it for their own personal need. It was impossible to connect your multi-sig to other application. It was very much there to hold funds and maybe do like simple transactions, definitely not for the end users. And that's where I think early 2018, 2019 account abstraction discussion started. And back then, I think the term is coming back, but back then we were calling them smart accounts or smart wallets. And it was the idea is effectively, well, we should just let people own wallets that are programmable. That allows us to have really nice properties, like you can, instead of having multiple transactions, you can batch them together. You don't have to pay gas with ETH. Someone can pay the transaction fees for you. Tons of other stuff, managing, multi-sig within yourself, adding 2FA. I'm sure many of us are familiar with all the benefits of account abstraction. And unfortunately, this was a lot of work because it requires a lot of primitives, such as you need a relayer system, you need, something to orchestrate a transaction. The smart contract, in terms of the smart contracts needed for smart wallets, tend to be a bit more complex and risky than others. So it took a long time for the space. And not only that, but obviously building a wallet with the UI and everything is more complex when you have a smart account wallet. And you see that a lot today, like EOA wallet are fairly interoperable and composable in that I can just take my private key and extract it from one UA wallet, import it in another. We don't really have that with smart account wallet. There's still a lot of work that would need to be happen to get to that point. Sorry, but I digress. So this is how it was in the last few years, and I think with 4327, 1271, 6492, there's tons of account abstraction standards that have started to emerge that help this space. Okay, well, now we can have a common language for what a relayer should look like, and we can have a common language for what transaction payloads should look like, and we have how to, and eventually I'm sure we'll have a better agreement on paymaster logic, which is still fragmented. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the smart account side for it to be easy to build new ones. I think everybody's kind of like building their own in the silo. That's kind of where we are at today, I would say. I'm hoping, obviously, that, well, one thing I left out is the politics of having native account abstraction versus application layer account abstraction. That's probably a good discussion to have, so I'll leave it open for other people to answer, because I'm sure some people will disagree on. We should probably not. One of my sentences is we should probably not include it at the native layer. So excited to debate with you guys if you want to go there.
I love it. You left it all spicy. Yeah, I think anyone that wants to jump in, feel free to.
Yeah,
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I just wanted to add the fact that when we started off providing meta transactions back in the day, I was like very much against the fact that we should enable smart contract wallets as another way for developers to basically enable meta transactions, just because of the fact that you would essentially enable the user to have like two different addresses, and that's just a UX nightmare for a lot of dApps. And so we stuck to like just EOAs. And of course, as things started sort of developing, and we were asking ourselves, okay, what can accounts do more? And then that's when we realized, all right, we kind of do need to look into smart accounts, and this is when 437 was coming about. And so it's just funny how sort of things did change there. I would even probably like digress and say here that at least the challenge for smart accounts, I think we still in a way kind of live in an echo chamber. Many users don't really care. They don't really like see a difference. And of course, it's all up to all of us as a community and as solutions as well, like to provide like an awesome UX. And I'm happy to sort of hear everyone's thoughts on that, because I still think we're very far away from seeing how smart accounts can develop unless they are maybe somewhat at a protocol level, or at least smart contract abilities at a protocol level. So keen to hear everyone's thoughts on this as well.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just want to say that I definitely very much agree with both what Ahmed said and also what Philip said. So I think I totally agree with Ahmed in saying that the overall stage of adoption for smart accounts still very, very early right now. But I really want to I really agree with what Philip said about how the whole smart account ecosystem is actually still very much fragmented and siloed, right? Because I think there's this misconception that the standardization around smart accounts ended with ERC 437, right? But actually, the reality is that there's still a huge amount of standardization that needs to happen before the developer experience around smart accounts can actually become very seamless, right? So I think just very briefly point out two kind of ongoing developments that would be really beneficial in that regard, right? So one is this whole idea around capabilities, which is this idea pushed by Coinbase, especially with Coinbase Smart Wallet, right? So the idea with ERC's 5792 capabilities is that instead of every single smart wallet, such as ZeroDev and Biconomy, and Sequence, they all speak different APIs right now. So instead of doing that, we'll all speak like one common API, such that a dApp can support all smart wallets by just like supporting that one single set of standard API, right? So like that's like a really, really big kind of like a breakthrough that's like playing out right now. And then another really, really big one is also that it's also ERC 7702, right? So like that's supposed to be this EIP that will be coming in the next Ethereum upgrade patcher that will essentially gives all EOAs the ability to turn themselves into a smart wallet, right? So I think like that's also like another big standards that will really, I guess, like open up the I guess like the path towards I guess just like much wider adoption of smart accounts than how it is today. Yeah.
I think it can be like a little confusing for people when when we talk about all these ERCs that are coming out, and I think it's a good point to mention. I feel like 4337 just opened a can of worms, and now people are like scrambling to figure out like what are the standards that are required for actually people to be compatible with 4337 accounts. I know we had Pedro from Wallet Connect on in the last version of this when we talked about the credible SDKs, and we sort of walked through the whole list of different ERCs that are being built to support 4337 accounts. And so yeah, 4337 is kind of just like the start of the rabbit hole, and then the amount of standardization that's required from there is humongous. I think one thing that I've been wondering is it seems a lot of these standards around smart contract accounts are really focused on smart contract accounts on single chains. Have you guys been thinking a lot about how to bring these smart accounts multi-chain, and then what kinds of standards are required to be able to do not just necessarily across EVM chains, but also non-EVM chains?
Oh, I'll go. I'm the only one that raised his hand. So the first thing maybe because you guys asked me to go with history, so I'm in the history mood right now. But there was a lot of discussion a few years ago of like, oh, smart account wallets don't really work because you need to deploy contract and different chains have different wallet addresses. I think that discussion was largely resolved with the fact that almost all chains and L2s and L3s are fully EVM equivalent. They're fully EVM compatible, such that the deployed bytecode is the same on one chain to the other. And there was a lot of even optimism that didn't have that. And there's still some chains out there like Starknet and obviously, non-Ethereum related chains that don't have that property. I think that's going to remain a challenge. Like Starknet, Fuel are in the Ethereum world, but they're very difficult to build a smart account wallets due to the fact that the wallet address changes. So I think, could there be innovation there? Potentially. I don't know if it's worth the effort because more and more layer 2s or chains are making sure that the bytecodes result to the same contract address. So that was one thing. And then the next part, I think is the main thing that is unique to smart contract. Well, sorry, another very important thing when it comes to smart contract addresses, smart contract wallets in the cross-chain world is how do you manage the configuration of a smart wallet? In EOAs, it's very simple. You have one private key, and you just have one private key, and it's true for every chain. However, on smart accounts, you can have multiple signers. And because the state lives at the contract level, your wallet is effectively stateful, which means that if I add a signer, I need to add that signer and update the contract on every single chain. That's not trivial, right? This is why there's discussions around key store rollup and other solutions. I think all of us have our own attempt at doing this. Some are more rigid, where you can't really change the signers. You could have a mix of MPC. You could have like what we do is a light sensing. So we have a service that lazily updates the configuration when needed. There's tons of ways to solve that. I don't think this is fully resolved yet. I think there's still improvements to be made. And apart from that, I think these are like the the two biggest issues that are exclusive to smart account wallets. Other issues about cross chains, I think, are shared with EOA wallets as well.
Sorry, Ivo, did you want to speak? Oh.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, actually, Philippe covered it, but I was basically gonna say how managing configuration sync is so difficult, and honestly, I personally don't see a solution in sight. And at Ambire, we're leaning to a immutable concept where we're just putting this side of smart accounts aside for the time being, because basically the rollup solution, it requires like each rollup to have an easy way to access the parent state, which is not something universally available. The solution that Sequence has is pretty cool, but in my personal opinion, it's a bit tough to manage. And yeah, it's basically every form of solving this problem is a bit of a compromise. And honestly, from the 2 or 3 years that we've been in production, we haven't seen people use that feature that much, and that's quite interesting. But people can't wrap their heads around it. Like, they're not used to this mental model where you can change the configuration. And in our case, it's much more difficult, obviously, because you have to do it separately on each chain. So this is something that's been just confusing the hell out of most people. And I personally believe that perhaps users are not ready for this yet. Although it makes sense for account recovery.
Where's the sort of status quo of account recovery? Like I remember when I was playing with this stuff, we like did all this social recovery, and the idea is that you could sort of add all these things as modules to the accounts. Has that changed, or are we sort of still at the phase of like you sign with one key to enable another key?
So there's so many solutions that are live. At Ambire, we have the original like email-based recovery, and also we started a project to do email recovery through DKIM, which is a way that email providers use to sign emails. And we got a grant from the Ethereum Foundation for doing this, and we made some great progress. But again, it's a matter of user need, because what we found is that many of our OG users, who are just crypto natives, they do not want that feature. So I think there's a lot of FUD in the space around smart accounts, which is also a controversial topic that maybe we should touch upon, and adding complexity through features like account recovery. So, like for example, people feel safe using a multi-sig like Safe, but they don't feel safe enabling Safe modules for account recovery, right? And yeah, that's kind of an elephant in the room that maybe we should touch upon. Anyone want to say anything about that?
I mean, I guess I feel like I guess like regarding like Stefan's question about the state of recovery. So I just want to point out that like at the current state, the idea of recovery is inherently at odds with the idea of multi-chain, right? Like due to the issue that Philip was talking about earlier, right? Because like right now, in order to keep your address consistent across all the EVM chains, you're relying on the assumption that like all those accounts are controlled by a single given fixed key, right? But then like when you try to recover your accounts, if you do it like naively, it's going to only recover their accounts on that one chain, while leaving all the old keys in all the other chains. But like even if you recover, you kind of like replay the recover transaction on every chain, you still need to worry about all the chains you have not yet deployed your accounts on, even chains that don't exist today but might be deployed tomorrow, right? So like the idea of recovery and multi-chain are inherently at odds today, like given the current status quo. However, I do want to make 2 points, right? So like one is that I think at this point, I think the idea of key space has been pretty widely recognized as a pretty great solution for just like the idea of recovery, just like the idea of like multi-chain recovery going forward, right? So like key space, I know like Coinbase and Scroll are both working on solutions that are supposed to, be production ready pretty soon, right? So I think so I'm personally pretty optimistic that multi-chain recovery will get solved pretty soon. I do want to make one point about what Ivo was saying earlier about how like recovery doesn't seem to be like a very widely used feature, right? So I think the fact that it has been true so far doesn't suggest that will continue to be true going forward, because I think like the reason why recovery hasn't been that big of a thing up until this point is because like even with smart contract accounts today, right? Like if you think about safe, like most people, they still control their safe with some kind of EOA, right? Like people still control their smart contract wallets with some kind of seed phrase based private keys, right? And like right now there's like already like a very mature, I guess, like infrastructure or like norm or like process for safeguarding one's private keys, right? So the people who are using crypto very heavily today, they are pretty good at keeping their keys safe, right? But moving forward, we will be talking about more and more use cases and users who primarily interact with Web3 through things like passkeys, social logins, and whatnot, right? So like, I think like that's when like we really need to start thinking about, because it's like things like social accounts and also like passkey based like literally hardware devices, those things are really really easy to be lost, right? So I think like that's why I think that's like even if we have not seen that much actual usage of recovery so far, I think if we think about how the next billion users, I know that's cliche, but but like how the next billion users are going to be using Web3, I think I think recovery is definitely a really really important problem to solve. Yeah.
So I was just gonna add that this is also a very difficult problem because you're adding one more dimension to configuration sync. So if configuration sync can be solved by syncing state like between rollups and between a main chain, when you add the fact that account recovery could include a time lock, it does become really complicated unless you are recovering on the main chain, which is like the source of truth, and then propagate the state to rollups. But then if you wanna recover only on a rollup, like for example the user never used Ethereum and only wants to recover their funds on Optimism, but then this recovery requires a time lock, then this makes things even more complicated. Because most of the time we think about syncing configuration changes, we don't think with the context of adding a time lock on top of that.
I have a bit of a troll suggestion here, which is if we were to build a chain that's able to make signatures, then maybe we don't need to do account recovery at the periphery, but instead only do it on that one chain. And then you just have to bring a valid signature from that chain to all the other places.
Isn't this,
you never need to rotate the keys.
Like an SSO.
Isn't this just like any like Polkadot or Cosmos or any chain where you can easily verify that certain state exists using the aggregate signature of the validators, right?
Maybe, I'm not sure. Is that how they work?
Sort of. If you have signature aggregation, and I think Cosmos has it for sure, I'm not sure about Polkadot, then you can just very, very easily verify one signature, and this verifies the block header, and from there you can just use a Merkle proof to verify any state on that chain. So it's like trivial to verify that something happened on that chain. I could be wrong about this. Anyone feel free to correct me.
I suppose that that provides you a state proof, but what I was sort of suggesting is like if every single transaction actually goes through that initial chain, and that chain, the signature that comes from that chain is required to be able for the user to issue a transaction on any of the smart contract accounts on any of the other chains, then you don't need to cycle that key, right? You can have the access control defined on that chain.
So let me that one chain, which sounds awfully familiar to One Balance, but that one
Just
chain,
a coincidence, I promise. We're not building this.
that one chain, you're saying like somehow people would have a private key or some sort of signature creation scheme on that one chain, and all the configuration logic would live on that chain, and every other chain basically would have to support the signature. And so the signature should be, the configuration for the other chain doesn't change, but who is able
Exactly.
to produce the signature is centralized, which is, to be fair, that reminds me of MPC. But
yeah, it's like having an MPC network that's holding the EOA that's like.
But you
able
can
to
program.
check.
You can program your.
Yeah,
MPC.
but you can program it exactly. Yeah, so you're running essentially maybe like the simplest implementation of this would be like you shard a key inside of some threshold signature, and then you run consensus over some program that like has the access control over that key.
That reminds you of Web3 auth. That's a little bit what they're, not exactly, but because it's not really programmable. But yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, yeah, it'd be tricky. The chain itself cannot hold the private keys, so you'd have to, as you said, have consensus and nodes signing independently.
I mean,
Ahmed, you wanted to add something?
I was just going to say, like, this kind of like makes me think from from a simple level that it's like an SSO basically, right? Like it's where users basically
yeah
right, like authorization, configuration, sorry, and it becomes like an SSO chain.
Yeah, it sounds like it actually. You're right. And then maybe there's going to be multiple different SSO chain providers, and then people can like pick which one they trust the most or whatever.
Yeah, I think this idea of like doing your, I guess like your signing or like your auth on like one chain, is essentially actually like just how key stores work, right? You know, because like the idea of key stores is that you have like one single chain, like one single rollup, on which your key store lives, right? And then like, but then like I guess like the difference is that it's not so much that like the key store generates a signature, but rather that we kind of rely on the fact that like all the L2s, all the rollups are kind of connected by the fact that they all have access to the L1 state, right? So like basically the way key stores works is basically that you will prove on another L2. So for example, if you want to use your key on Optimism, right? But like your key, you know, actually like the auth logic actually lives in the key store rollup. You would do some kind of like cross-chain proof to prove that, oh, like, you know, you actually like on the key in the key store rollup, right? You know, so it's not so much like checking a signature, but rather just like using a cross-chain proof to validate that that you are actually who you say you are on that key store rollup. Yeah, you know, so I think you know like the overall idea is actually very similar, you know, but you know, like in terms of just like having one chain, you know, that handles the auth. Yeah.
Right. And then, well, instead of it being just a key store, if it's able to provide a signature, then the user can just bring that signature themselves, as opposed to the rollup needing to read from that key store, right? I want to maybe like pivot the conversation a little bit and see what are people's thoughts on just the migration of users, and maybe this is like an over talked about topic, but the migration of users from EOAs to Smart Account. Right. I think in different phases in time, we've sort of built different beliefs over what would cause this migration to take place. And I wonder what's like sort of the common belief here on what will be the trigger for the majority of users to start using Smart Accounts as opposed to EOAs.
I'll quickly jump in here. So this is, of course, a discussion like, you know, we kind of internally have and have with friends and partners. I would say, like, what's interesting, like, of course, there are different dynamics, right? Some of these dynamics of, you know, why a user should go from an EOA to Smart Account kind of rest upon the current state of wallets, right? Like everyone either uses a MetaMask, a Rabby, or what have you, and majority of these wallets have not sort of made that, you know, switch. And, you know, we as an industry in a way are still kind of like, let's say, waiting for that, because then at least it gives more exposure to Smart Accounts. Of course, it's great to see Trust Wallet and Coinbase going in that direction already. so there's that part. There's that sort of dynamic of just wallets in general not doing this. And if we could maybe compare this to like Solana, just very quickly, like they introduced links, right? And of course, the Solana Foundation had to have all these wallets support the same standard, and they did just very quickly, right? And boom, like wallets kind of all are doing the same thing. And so at least on the EVM side, it's of course a bit harder, as we're all aware. So there's that part. We know that, of course, not all dApps are compatible with smart wallets as well. And like just to sort of go and answer your question, Stefan, on this, like from a, just looking at the market right now, it's I would say any form of speculative app would probably that incorporates smart accounts would probably boost adoption. Honestly, like it's like the way the market is, at least the way we're seeing it, the way let's say where the use cases are, where users are going, it's definitely speculative. And so when I kind of think, okay, what is a credible, let's say morally, let's say dApp that would actually attract users because they want to use it, it will probably be Quest platforms, right? Be it Galaxy, be it Layer 3, they have a huge amount of users, and at any point, them switching to smart accounts would probably enable that. And I think other than, like, of course, existing bigger applications or wallets, switching to smart accounts, it would probably take one great breakaway application that is probably chain abstracted to some degree, that kind of gives this sort of new user, not just user experience, but at least giving users like a new way of doing things, right? Like we're all used to, like I think Philip said earlier, or was it Ivo? I can't remember that. When it comes to multi-sigs and everything, like we do it through a safe, right? That's just a typical user behavior. And so I think any new breakaway app that introduces a new user behavior, incorporating smart accounts would be that. We kind of just need that one big application. That's just my opinion from all the things we've seen.
Yeah, so what I wanted to add here is that what's the basic user feedback that we're getting from actual real people who are trying to convert from EOAs to smart accounts is, first of all, back in the day, 2 years ago, it was a lot about dApp compatibility. But the one piece of feedback that we're hearing the loudest and that never went away is simply the fact that they have a new address and that they have to move their funds and their staking positions and etc. to a new address. And I don't think it's that much of a matter of having to do the work and actually having to migrate the funds, as it is a psychological barrier, right? So you just feel sort of a bit unease having to do that for no reason when just migrating from MetaMask to Rabi, for example, just requires importing the same keys and you're good to go. So I think that this is the like really basic reason that migration has been so slow, and that's why I'm so bullish on 7702.
I think that's really funny. I mean, maybe just like an anecdote here is I tried to cycle my keys like somewhat frequently so that I don't build up a history of like approvals or something like that. And I still somewhere like deep down feel like, oh shit, the like address that I had before was like more aesthetically pleasing. And so even from that
Exactly,
perspective,
yeah.
it's like, oh shit, I have to move to now another address again. And is it going to be a number that I feel, passionate about or whatever?
And I think you guys both summarized it well, but I'll go a bit against I guess both of you a little bit. But so fundamentally, I think what Ahmed was saying is very right. Is that really, if you look at the number of wallets out there, it's a small percentage of total user base or potential market, right? There's a lot more people that don't have wallets that have wallets. And I think for new people, it really doesn't matter because, as Ivo, you said, it's changing a wallet address that is probably the biggest number one hurdle that we have. So if you're brand new users, you won't care. You're just going to go with whatever wallet you're being suggested or your friends is using. Doesn't really matter which one you're using. So we're really discussing is like, okay, existing wallets, existing users, how do we get them to switch to a smart contract wallet? And personally, I don't think changing a wallet address is a big deal for most people. And there's a lot of evidence for that. In that, I'm willing to bet $1,000, whatever it is, that every single person on the call has more than 5 wallet addresses. Whatever it's for, you guys are testing. I know obviously we're all like in the wallet development space, but if you ask most existing Web3 users, most of them will have more than 3 wallet addresses. And that's for, there's a lot of reasons. It could be just within MetaMask as well, maybe for even within MetaMask, a lot of people, most people, and we've done survey in the past that shows that most people have multiple wallets even within MetaMask. But you can also see like evidence with the rise of embedded wallets. You see, for example, FemTech or other applications, Farcaster, whatever it is. A lot of people don't have issues transferring funds to a brand new wallet. They may not transfer everything, which I think what you guys are describing is like, okay, the people that have significant amount of wealth and they're very conservative with moving this money or just having fun with that money. I think these will probably don't move no matter what. They may not even want to enable 702 just because that's like, it's money, it's on my ledger. I do not play with this. I do as little transaction as possible. If it's a hot wallet that I use on MetaMask to trade NFTs and shitcoin, I don't think people care that much about transferring the funds to a new wallet or not. And that to me is why like you just need an application that pushes people to do a new wallet. Or you need a good reason for these existing users to move over, and I think they'll do it. I don't think the barrier is that high. It's just that most people that are existing are not that active. They're just not that active with their wallet, so they don't really see the value of switching over.
It's interesting to map like a mirror to just TradFi, right? Like, I think everyone here has more than one bank account and probably more than one credit card or debit card, right? And it's kind of the same thing. Also, whenever you sort of interact with an application, whether it's a game or whatnot, you also hold a balance within that application, and those are all like transfers, right? So the connectivity over is like is a little bit different than where the users actually hold their balance. And having a focus on, probably as users use more applications and care more about different applications, they'll end up being more comfortable holding balances with these applications. Anyone else want to add something here? Otherwise, I'll bring the conversation back towards
Derek had his hand
multi-chain stuff.
Yeah, I think honestly, like you guys already pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I think maybe just to highlight the points that I really agree with, right? So I think like totally agree with Ahmed in saying that probably like somewhat counterintuitively, right? The way like if we actually look at how things have been playing out so far, right? Just like among the millions of ERC-437 smart accounts, like how have those actually been created, right? They've all been created when not a user decided to switch their wallets, but rather when an application decides that, I am going to build on smart accounts, right? It's like my application is going to support nothing other than smart accounts. So in order to use my application, you as a user have to come and create a new smart account, and that's how all the smart accounts have been created so far, right? So that's so yeah. So but I also totally agree with Philip in saying that basically, like even in the case in which a smart account has been created, like I'm sure like it's literally never happens that a EOA user who has like real sizable savings in their EOA actually decides to transfer all their money into a smart account, right? It's more so that like the EOAs just like coexist with the smart accounts that are embedded inside these applications, right? So I think like the way that's been playing out so far hasn't really been a transition from EOA to smart account per se, but rather just like existing crypto natives, existing EOA users, starting to get more comfortable with the idea that like with the idea that they will have like all these ephemeral smart accounts that they can use with like other applications, right? And I think that like if we are talking about when people will actually transition from like using EOAs to using smart accounts only, then I think that the only I think that only two things can make this happen, right? So one is like when we get a huge breakthrough in Web3 adoption, and then again the next billion users just coming, and the first wallet that they create are smart accounts. So that's scenario number one. And then scenario number two is simply 7702, right? It's simply the fact that there will soon be a EIP that will allow existing EOAs to transparently upgrade into smart accounts. So I think that those two, I guess, paths are how we get to a state in which everyone's using smart accounts.
Maybe a succinct way to wrap this up is there's instead and then there's and also, and probably the smart account for the foreseeable future will be an and also, and never really an instead. And unless a user is just onboarded directly into a smart account and they just never have a reason to use an EOA again. I want to bring the conversation back towards the credible stack, cross-chain, and the roles that smart accounts play in it. Maybe a question here would be, from each of your different perspectives, how important is it for accounts to become credible, and what are the sort of biggest challenges that perhaps it helps solve if on a cross-chain basis if they implement some of this credible stack stuff?
Stefan, can you define first credible in that case so that everybody knows what you mean?
Yeah, for sure. So the big challenge with EOAs is that they're able to sign two transactions that have the same nodes, and both need to be considered valid by the chain. So I call this the equivocation problem of EOAs. And smart accounts solve this issue by saying okay, you have a smart contract on chain that's able to create a lock over a subset of the user state, such that anyone that's monitoring the account can say, credibly, no one is able to double spend this amount. No one's able to issue another valid request over this state. And so, at least in the one balance construction, we sort of posit that this is a really important component of solving the cross-chain UX, because you want to be able to make commitments to solvers who bring transactions to destination chains that the state of the account won't change. But as I believe, current smart accounts are most likely not all compatible to be credible, because they have upgrade mechanisms, because they have the ability for the user to take some other action, or do a new approval over a token, these kinds of things.
This is why modules win, baby. This is, I think, a great way to essentially enable the credible stack is, and I think this was referenced a bit before in the call as well, regarding sort of different approaches to modular smart accounts, where this can easily and should be enabled at a module level, because it allows for smart accounts to not have to upgrade like Stefan said, which is a major challenge, and also it kind of enables that module to be also spread across all the different accounts that support that same standard. So I definitely think that is at least like an easy sort of go-to market for the credible stack.
Does the modular approach run into the same issues of syncing as you're trying to solve with the key store rollup, like managing modules?
Yeah, it's the same issue. But I think that 90% of achieving credible accounts sounds like would be getting people to migrate from EOAs to smart accounts anyway. And then 10% would be like modules or building those locks into the accounts. Probably best done by modules. But yeah, doing the modular stuff is much easier than getting people to migrate in the first place.
Something I'll add, because I saw there was chatter about 7702 in the chat. A 7702 cannot be credible, as far as I'm aware, because 7702 is still an EOA, and it can equivocate out of its delegation to the smart contract. I know that the standard is still sort of being designed, but I don't see a way to make 7702 DOS resistant while also making it credible. That's sort of a challenge that I foresee.
Yeah, that's like a a really good point for sure. I think just like one of the many reasons why 7702 smart accounts will always be just like a bit of like a second class citizen in terms of like smart accounts, just because there's always this EOA key that has like pseudo privilege over the smart account, right? But I think like maybe another thing I would add is also that totally agree that like modules are that like it's possible to program a module that can lock resources, but things like like zero dev, at zero dev we were like actually looking to possibly adopting a model such as one balance. The issue that we ran into was that like if we're talking about existing already deployed accounts, it's actually quite hard to, I guess, like migrate them to a form that supports, I guess, like like this idea of credibility, just because like right now all smart accounts that are deployed with the assumption that first of all the smart account is upgradable, right? And secondly, there's almost always a pseudo validator, right? So like there's almost always a either key or just like multisig that can change the config of the smart account, right? So really like for a smart account to be truly credible, you really need to set up not just a module, but also change how sudo works, such that even the sudo user cannot override the time lock, right? Yeah. So I think like that's I guess just like one reason why existing smart accounts might have a bit of an issue to, for like moving towards this idea of credibility. But I think like for it's definitely possible to design smart accounts from this point forwards to be compatible with this idea of credible commitment machines.
Yeah, time delayed pseudo operations I think is like a really interesting way to frame the problem. If a smart account doesn't have time delayed pseudo operations, then it cannot be credible.
Time delayed, or every transaction has to be approved by some sort of there's always a third party signer that validates and refuses to sign if it's breaking the commitment.
Like the one chain that we brought up earlier.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other topics that people want to discuss in the last few minutes?
There's one thing I would like to ask, because you guys are working closer to the actual user interface level, and when we talk about chain abstraction, obviously the idea is to abstract all the complexity away from users. But looking at the space at the moment, everybody is used to it and kind of gets scarce as soon as you abstract those things away. Whereas everybody who's coming in is not interested in having to deal with all the complexity. And I'm always wondering, like, going forward, how will that be solved to kind of serve both of those sides, the hardcore degens who want to see every tiny detail and want to actually be able to manage every tiny detail of like transactions happening, and those who don't care about which chain they interact with and gas and want to have all of that abstracted away from them. Do you see it on the user interface being realized like a lot of the central exchanges do with like an advanced mode and a like simplified mode, or like how at this point do you think it will be realized on the like wallet level in the future? Do you think there are more like niche wallets that have like all the advanced features, and then the ones that are abstracting everything away? Is there like, does anyone has an idea on like how to actually realize it on the user interface?
I'll start. I think right now, and this has been true for the last few years, everybody has been trying to do the my wallet is the one wallet to rule them all kind of thing, where it's a wallet that is used for all applications. I don't think there's enough diversity on the applications yet for justifying, or I think you can start seeing this a little bit, but there's definitely going to be in the future, specialized wallets or wallets that are very branded around a specific vertical, where it's like, oh, we are the wallet for DeFi, we are the wallet for e-commerce or gaming, or maybe a music wallet, or whatever it is. I think we're definitely going to see some wallets that get specialized because the user experience is just going to be a lot easier to cater the user experience that way. And you see that, if you think of social, you saw the same thing. Twitter and Instagram and Facebook are kind of all the same. It's all like you can post picture, you can post messages, you can connect with friends, but the interfaces are different, and it fills a different niche. I think we'll see that on the long term. I think that's more likely to happen. I'm sure some wallets will have a pro mode and a not pro mode. But yeah, I imagine on long term, wallets will start to differentiate themselves at a vertical level.
Yeah, 100% agree with Philippe here. Like, I kind of like think of this as like not all UX is created equal, and that's fundamentally because of the fact that, be it you're a Web3 power user, a degen, right now, that base UX that they have is the same sort of base UX that a normie would have, right? And so, for them to do the things that they want to do, or at least let's say a degen, for example, they can do so many of the cool things that they'd want to do, knowing all the details. Smart accounts, or if a wallet were to provide that as a base, it would enable them to do their things faster. Whereas a different UX for a noob or a new user, of course, would have a completely different way of showing things, but at least it's configured from sort of the wallet or the dApp level. And I kind of like to call this as like sort of a uniform UX. Like, wallets should all ideally be in a position where they give configurations to dApps so that dApps could actually customize the user journey, right? And I do, like right now, dApps actually have to do a lot of work in order to get to some interesting or good UX, right? And so there's no customizability, right? And that's where I see that there's a really big problem. This is why I really believe why smart accounts can, solve all the things that we're seeing at the UX layer, because it's not giving an easy configurability, or at least an easy way to customize the different user profiles that a dApp or wallet might have.
Yeah. I think I totally hear the idea that, I understand the idea that like crypto natives might struggle with too high levels of a abstraction, right? But I think like this kind of reminds me of that famous story about Steve Jobs. So it's kind of like, remember how like when Steve Jobs just revealed the iPhone, right? And a reporter famously asked him, like, how are people going to learn to use multi-touch, which back then was a very new idea, right? And then Steve Jobs famously responded, "Your fingers will learn." Right? So I think the idea here is that I think we might be overestimating how fast people can unlearn their habits when a sufficiently strong and powerful UI/UX presents itself, right? So I think I take a more optimistic, a very optimistic view that's like, if we can solve a lot of like these challenges that we talk about in this call, then I think that like the end states of Web3 UX will be so smooth and powerful that it really doesn't take much for any crypto natives to like unlearn their current habits and to adopt like the new paradigm. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Just being mindful of everyone's time, we're at the hour. Is there anything else that anybody would like to discuss or bring up in the space? Go forward now.
I've actually got to jump. So I really appreciate everyone coming in and chatting today. I think this was a really high quality conversation. I love these Twitter spaces because these are like panels that like have all the really cool people talking on them, and you know, I get a lot out of it. So I hope that everyone listening did as well. Thanks for making the time to come on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, everybody. It was really, really great. This space has also been recorded, so everybody who came in late, feel free to just listen to the recording. And obviously a little shill in the end. We just opened registration for your OneBalance account, so head over to onebalance.io and register for your account and start building your account score. Thanks again, everybody, for listening and for joining, especially to our guest, obviously. And we're looking forward to the next space. We will post about it soon on OneBalance. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Right.
See you guys.